Welcome back to The Change Physician. I am Melissa Cady, the Challenge Doctor. I'm here with my co-host from the West Coast, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, and we are here to share a little Saturday salutations and celebrations or whatever else you want to share. At our Saturday salutations, we like to share what's been happening in the podcast. If you don't know what the Change Physician is all about, there is a website called thechangephysician.com. You can join us there, whether you're a physician or if you call yourself a physician ally. We would love to have you there. So, Kevin, how are you?
Melissa, how are you?
Good. Well, let me pop into our spreadsheet here of our podcasts and say what we've had going on this past week. And we have our host chat. It is the 23rd. So on the 21st, we revealed a healthier Dr. Kevin, the nutrition intervention he finally embraced. So we won't say what it is. You got to go check it out and you can see what he's playing with nutritionally, which has some science to it too. But any recent events or anything you'd like to share, Kevin?
No, other than that episode, what I'm doing, I can't remember when we recorded that, what exactly I was doing, but
don't give it all away.
I won't give it all away, but I've been enjoying it. And it isn't what I would say like easy, but the simplicity of how I've sort of organized it is very pleasing to me. I'll just say that. Like a theme that has come up, I think, in a lot of our episodes, like for me at least, is it's simple. I want things to be simplified, and don't make it. Making things super complex is super easy to do, but figure out the way to make it simple. And I kind of want to, like, sometime we should do an update. I think we're going to do an update on our stuff later.
Yeah, maybe next week.
Yeah, but it is sort of fun. And then some of the tools and things I've sort of figured out or found to use it, and been kind of in the position where I'm lucky enough to be able to do that is pretty cool. So yeah. Well,
good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to say accountability is the thing that comes to mind right now, because the fact we put it on the air and to each other. I mentioned I would be doing a pull-up challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I hate saying it like that. I am the challenge doctor, but sometimes the challenge things out there are really stupid and people get harmed from it. So, like,
you're thinking like those TikTok swallow a Tide Pod or what? I don't even, whatever those dumb things are. Those are stupidity.
That's not a challenge. That's like
a dare. It's a dare.
Yeah, it's not for your benefit of your health. Let's just say that.
There's an episode right there. The difference between a challenge and a dare.
There you go.
Yeah.
I dare you to explain that. So,
anyway, you challenged me to explain that.
Well, I could challenge you. That would be a lot healthier, right?
Yeah, that's healthier, because the explanation should be healthy. A dare is unhealthy.
Yeah, that's like risk your life or your health with it. That was a synopsis right there. You don't even have to go further. But I have been doing my other than a few days here and there because of post-COVID fatigue. I have been now doing, I'm shooting for 2 sets of 15 of pull-ups. They're modified right now, but I'm going to work up to it. And I just finished watching the 4 episodes in the docuseries for the 100 Years Blue Zones.
The Blue Zones, yeah. The ones on.
I forgot. Peter Butner?
Yeah, Dan Butner.
Dan. Okay, Dan. Sorry. I remember the last name. I just can't pronounce it either. But that was it was enjoyable. And just a couple of just highlighted locations without saying all of them. Okinawa, Japan, and in Greece, Ikaria. How do you say it?
Ikaria. I don't know if that's how you spell it.
Yeah. Ikaria. And then actually Loma Linda.
Well, that was a fudged one.
Was it?
Yeah, because when they were doing the blue zones, they were trying to find places with centenarians, and because it's America centric or U.S.
Yeah.
centric,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, well, we got to have something in the United States, and so the closest they found was Loma Linda for the average, where they got them up to like the high 90s, which is still pretty good.
Yeah. For America.
Yeah, but they had to fudge. They had that one I always remember because they had to fudge it a little bit just to make
Yeah.
it say there's some place in America that had it.
Well, it's interesting because there's changes. It's shrinking in Okinawa, Japan, because of the influence of, the youth and the other American kind of like dietary, changes.
Bad food, focus on everything else other than family, and capitalism is the be all end all of the world. And I don't have anything against capitalism except for rampant capitalism.
Yeah. There's the lady in Costa Rica. It was over 100. She's like hacking with the saw, like not saw, with a
axe or machete,
an axe, and at some logs, and it was smile on her face and just like happy to be alive, and it was just like freaking amazing. I mean, is it possible she has some freaky gene thing? Yeah, but my God, it was, some of these people are so damn cute. These old people that are like,
well, and that was kind of the point of the whole blue zones, though, it's not necessarily a genetic thing per se, but the fact that there is a cluster of health related behaviors, including social related behaviors, and that health being social, diet, and movement, that have come together in such a way that promoted an extended lifespan. And if you do those, I mean, that was the point of it. So and I'm just saying that because I always get worried as soon as anybody says genetics that somebody's going to say, like, I have bad genes. I have bad genes. Bad genes is when you have like trisomy 13 or trisomy or whatever, the Edwards syndrome, which I think was 18, and that's bad genes. But for most everything else, like
what you do influences your genes.
What you do influences your genes. You don't have to like, oh, I have this genetic. I like the whole, what is the thing? The 23andMe. Because remember, 23andMe started, they were like all health, and then they got in trouble for it. And so now it's this, and then they pivoted to kind of ancestry, and you're related to Neanderthals, and you got 62,000 new blood relatives.
Aren't we all related to them?
Yeah, but they'll sometimes put some genetic stuff in there, and I get the little updates, and they just make me laugh. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these are just ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I would say that intuitively, I think most of us can, well, not all people, but I think most people are paying attention, can recognize the value of, I almost like think of it as an interdependence kind of thing. Like you have to have some connection with the world and good connections with people. You don't always have to be surrounded by people all the time, but there has to be this like intermittent interaction to fulfill those needs that we need as a species. But just I think of just the days that I'm like the happiest and when I feel most fulfilled, like it's usually first, it reminds me of what I saw these people that are over 100 years old are doing. Like they start early in the morning, they get outside, they get a little sunshine, they're out amongst nature, they're doing a variety of movements, a variety of needs like strength or a little bit of speed or maybe just balance, and like they're not consciously thinking of it. It's actually just part of their routine, and it's not painful, and you're not like thinking I gotta get myself up on the Precor or the Stairmaster. Like it's not painful, and they integrate it into, I don't know, like it could be pickleball with your neighbor, and you do all these things and they just become these routines. But at the same time, it's like that we talk about starting new habits, integrate it with something else you're already doing, and it gets you all the things you need to be done. So it's like, go out there, you're moving, you're making your own food. Oh, hence you're eating food that's nutritious and good for you. Oh, and that food that you're preparing, you're doing it with your family or your friends, and you're getting the connection you need. It's like, it's just so integrated. Well, anyway, I'm rambling.
No, you're not rambling. I think it's, I totally agree with you. And it's basically, so like they look at the blue zones and they look at, there's this integrated set of behaviors, but the other part about it, and maybe I can, I never bought the book. I watched the original TEDx and I've kind of followed their stuff and whatever, but I'm kind of curious about well, they must be getting this a little bit because they're trying to reproduce blue zones. They have these like blue zone initiatives or whatever, but so much of it is environmental,
Yeah.
so like Icaria is this rocky hillsided island thing, and these people running around at 100 aren't on escalators. They're literally going up and down rock staircases and elevated streets and things. And I kind of contrast that with what we have. There's this common mythology of like basically eliminating anything that creates movement because we think it's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're getting older now. You need to have a single family home. Oh, you're getting older now. You better remove all your carpet because you might chip and bake your knee or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I'm not saying you have to live in a lava pit or like trapeze across cliffs to get into your bedroom, but having some stairs that actually make you have to go up and down them consistently is not a bad thing. And being able to introduce these, or at least have little sort of things that make you stay active, and rather than, sedentary or take away your ability, that you have to do some balance, you have to do some navigation, maybe you have to stand on one leg while you're going up a step. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And people think like we have to reduce all risk to reduce all potential harm. And by reducing all risk and reducing all potential harm, you're actually creating harm because you have people that can't, it
reduces your resilience.
Reduces your resilience. And it just made me also think, because I was talking to my wife a little bit about like kids, because my youngest, that's an event. The youngest out of the two has now entered. She moved into the dorm yesterday. So now we are officially sort of like semi-empty nesters because they're at school. Probably at least one of them is going to come back. We're kind of, because some of the internship stuff that they're doing. But people parent in such a way that they remove all barriers for their kids. So, and thinking that they're sparing them harm, but what they're doing is creating them weak, to making them weaker because they have not developed any resiliency. And the way we age, or the way that we typically talk about aging, is very, very similar. We remove all barriers, or say you have to do all this stuff because you're going to have a potential harm associated with that. And by doing so, we make people weaker. And it's just the focus on just elimination of harm, or the potential of harm, it just starts getting absurd at some point.
I mean, it's one thing to say wear your seatbelt when you're in a 2,000-pound steel vehicle that can, suddenly be collided with by another one and you can fly out the window. Let's wear your seatbelt. That's a different kind of reducing.
That's just smart, right? Or wearing a helmet when you're on a bike. I mean, because that doesn't, what that basically is doing is protecting you, but it's not eliminating. It's not by the act of it making you less safe.
Yeah.
Trying to think about.
Although there are some people that fought that whole seatbelt thing. I can't get out if there's a fire.
Oh yeah, 1 in 5,000 times I'll get stuck, and I won't be able, or whatever the ridiculous.
That's
scenario.
why you buy one of those things in your glove compartment that you can
cut it off, or I know what this helmet laws for motorcycles suck. There was one guy out of 6,000 crashes that flew off and hit the water and had no injuries. And if he had been wearing his helmet, he would have, had something bad. It's like, well, the other 5,999 of them have head injuries and are vegetables. So what do you want to take? 1 in 6,000 versus not? And I think that's the way to kind of or smoke alarms, right? Now, granted, I'm not really good with smoke alarms because I probably need to update them. I'm looking at one right now. Do I have the batteries in it? But those are protective things that don't reduce your resiliency. Well, I'm assuming as long as someone said, "Oh, my smoke alarm's not going off, and it smells like smoke," but the smoke alarm should go off, so I'm not going to worry about smoke pouring in through my house. So we're not saying eliminate all protective equipment or protective barriers. It's just stop, like, whenever the intervention has such a low value and promotes a destruction in someone's capability, I think that there's a big problem there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely. Well, I had to bring up that I really enjoyed just it. I've always been inspired by just, I don't know why. Well, I probably have some reasons why, but I've just always I love the positive reinforcement and the inspiration that comes from people who are later in age that just keep going, and keep trying to like stay active and keep their minds and their body. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand. So I'm always loving those stories because it kind of, if people are honest with them, it squashes other people's like beliefs that you're supposed to go downhill when you're aging, when it could be totally the opposite. I mean, heck, you could, if you impose on a 25-year-old the mindset of someone that traditionally goes to the 75-year-old and like, or let's say 60, and they just, or let's say 65, or they retire and they stop doing things and they stop, like, impose it on a 25-year-old and see how great they are.
And I think a lot of 24 hour, I think we have in some ways.
We do have some.
We've created, this kind of attitude that there's nothing you can do. But the age related one, I can't remember. We may have talked about age related beliefs. Like the literature on beliefs is almost unbelievable, except for the fact that when you actually the science behind it is so good when they've actually tracked it and tried to separate things out. And and people go, well, how that can't be true? Like, why, if you think you're older, feel older, how come your health is worse? Well, because that translates into behaviors that you do that become self-sustaining. And then there's actually a response when you believe something is more threatening. There's a stress response that's associated with that actually causes real, whatever that means, physiological changes in your body that can cause accelerated kind of aging.
Yeah.
And it's just, so you be very, very careful about what you believe. And for adults, it just bugs me. I mean, probably because I turned 50 and I see, half my friends from high school are posting stuff about, oh, I'm old now, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you're going to be old if you keep saying that. Yeah. And I always come back to the Golden Girls, if everybody remembers that 1980s show, and they always look like a bunch of old women. And then you look at Sex and the City, and then you look at the reboot of the Sex and the City, which I honestly have never watched it. I just seen the commercials for it. But Sex and the City, the reboot, I mean, there are these nice looking women who are pretty glamorous and running around, right? But they're older than they were in the original source of Sex and the City, except the ages are the same. The Golden Girls are the same age as the Sex and the City ladies. There's a big difference there. And part of it is culturally, maybe in the 80s, we believe that when you're 50 or 55, you were old and you were supposed to be in a retirement community. And now, people are fighting that because, again, being a 50-year-old, there are some things that my eyes aren't as good and stuff like that. But
yeah.
I'm certainly stronger than I was 5 years ago. I think I'm healthier than I was 5 years ago, probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna, I get just so disturbed about it because.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Well, one of the physical therapists I'm friends with, the first time I heard someone really openly talking about beliefs and stuff, he's just like, people will die for their beliefs. Like,
oh yeah.
And it's to the point where sometimes even your own beliefs, you think of them as truths. Like, you don't you're not separating them out as like what's true or false. It's like that belief is so strong that is your truth, even if it's not supported.
That's not, well, that's sort of one of the definitions of belief is a belief that something is true in the absence of fact, right? And that's fine as long as you recognize that it's without fact. And that doesn't mean that there can be positive fact. I mean, the difference between belief and truth is that truth has fact. Belief is acting on the supposition that there is truth in something. There's faith. Faith is integral to belief. Yeah. And that when you start because we're going to almost move into a political spectrum here, is like you cannot function without beliefs. You want to make sure that your beliefs are coherent. You want to make sure that your beliefs are as supported by fact as they possibly can be, But you also want to make sure that your beliefs are not so rigid that they can't change when there's contradictory factual information to them.
Yeah. Because the cognitive dissonance people don't want to go through.
No, they'll change they'll really reinforce whatever the behavior that you're doing by revising the belief somewhat, and by self-justification and all this stuff. But so this long way is like, there's so well, the more and more you realize beliefs, you realize just how important and critical they are. Health related beliefs are a huge big deal. And then just also then the contradictory stuff, because in the political spectrum, if your beliefs are the only truth that you have, and the only way that you will entertain information is if it confirms to your belief, and any other information that is not that is untrue, or whatever. What's the term? Not half truth, not fake truths. What do they call alternative facts, or whatever it was. Oh. The lie's basically a lie. We call those alternative facts, which is a lie. You set yourself up into a big problem. And I guess the difference here is if there was good research that came out and said, Dr. Cuccaro, actually thinking that you're frail at 90 preserves your life better than believing you're healthy, and here's the data behind it, I would want to look at it for sure, and I would examine it, and I would want to see some follow-ups on it, but I would at least be willing to challenge that, and then kind of say, well, I may need to revise this, or maybe it's true. Maybe I need to think I'm going to be some pathetic, frail, old 90-year-old person, because that will keep me safer and have a happier life than not.
Well, I don't believe that.
I don't. We don't believe that. But until someone produces that, we can't say it. But our beliefs are aligned with the data at this point.
But there's something to say about if your brain's saying that I can do something despite the age, then you will attempt to do it, most likely, if you're interested. If you think you can't do it and you become less interested because you think you can't do it, are you going to do it? Why? That's kind of common sense. I know you want evidence, but I'm like,
well, that's the old Henry Ford saying, right? Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
That's right. And if you don't if no one's making you and you feel like you can't and you don't have the interest in doing it, you're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. I don't see how it's going to happen.
No. And yet, and a lot of it, of behavior is kind of instigated on the fact that you believe it's possible to do.
Absolutely.
If you believe something is impossible, you're not going to do it.
Unless you're forced to.
Well, and you're forced to, or random happenstance. Yeah. Or, random chance causes it to happen, which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
But
it's so strange. Weird thought. But okay. Well, we went everywhere. We were started off on the blue zones, which ironically, someone asked me why are they called the blue zones? And I was like, well, maybe because of blue hair, they're older. And I was like, and then in this docuseries, they're like the guy who was tabulating with a blue pen, they drop the ink and make dots. That's why they called the blue zone. So I'm like, oh, it was totally off. I'm like, if that's really why, that was not the right answer. And I'm so sorry for all the elderly people that I called blue hair.
But that's a great example of what the human brain does. It wants to create
make
meaning.
Sense of it. I'm
going to make because it's blue, there must be meaning for why it's blue rather than it's a random blue pen, right?
Yeah.
Our brains hate randomness, so we're going to take a story behind it. But I like that, the blue zones, because
that was my belief.
Blue hairs, the blue hair zones.
It's Anyway, so we're just going to run past that piece of knowledge that I was wrong about. But
it's okay, and you didn't say actually it's really because they're blue hair. They say it was a blue pen,
right.
But it was all about the blue hair.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, let's see. We've already gone over 20 minutes. Anything else you'd like to add into the conversation for Saturday Salutations?
Oh, I could talk about all sorts of stuff, but if we're
all right. Well, you take us out then.
Sure. Well, thank you all for joining us on Saturday Salutations. I hope you believe you're having a wonderful day, and I hope that you believe that you can initiate all those health-related maneuvers, or at least one, very simply, and consistently do it over time to help yourself get better. And until next time, stay well.
Take care.